The screen in front of Alex Castillo had 4 windows open, and every single one of them was asking for a piece of his soul. It was 7:48 p.m. on a Tuesday in late February, 2025. His office was on the 22nd floor of a glass tower in Brickell, Miami, with a view that tourists paid hundreds of dollars for. Right now, all he saw was the ghost of his own reflection. Pale and washed out against the glittering blackness of Biscayne Bay, a notification chirped from his wrist. His fancy smartwatch, the one he bought to optimize his life, flashed a tired, judgmental message, stand goal not met, 2 hours remaining. He let out a breath that was more of a sigh, a sound as familiar as the hum of the office, a sea. He'd been sitting here for 11 hours. His back had a dull, persistent ache right between his shoulder blades. His eyes felt like they were full of sand. This was the weird part, this exhaustion. It wasn't earned from laziness. No, just 6 hours ago, at 1 p.m. sharp, he'd been in a different glass box. A boutique fitness studio called Inferno over on South Beach. He'd paid $40 for that lunch break. He remembered the icy blast of the air conditioning hitting his skin as he walked in, the smell of industrial cleaner and synthetic lemon. The room was dark, lit only by neon strips and the angry red numbers on a giant screen. The music was less a song and more of a physical assault, a pounding bass that made his sternum vibrate. For 45 minutes, a trainer with a headset mic screamed motivational phrases that sounded like threats. Empty the tank. Dig deep. Is that all you have? Alex had pushed. He'd watched his heart rate on the screen, a frantic, spiking red line that looked like a panic attack. It hit 178 beats per minute during the last burpee sequence. He'd finished, drenched, his gym shirt clinging to him like a cold, wet second skin. The person next to him had actually dry-heaved into a towel, and they'd all given each other this exhausted, proud little nod. We did it. We suffered. We earned our SMOOTHIE. Now, back at his desk, he felt the results of that hard work. A nagging pinch in his left knee with every slight shift in his chair. A deep, cellular tiredness that made the words on his screen swim. And that stubborn little layer of softness around his middle, the one his tailor had discreetly mentioned last month, still pressed against the waistband of his chinos. He'd burned 720 calories according to his watch. He'd earned his Inferno Beast digital badge, so why did he feel so broken? Why was the idea of climbing the 3 flights to his apartment's rooftop pool more daunting than a financial audit? He closed his laptop with a soft click that echoed in the silent, empty office. The elevator ride down was a quiet tomb. He could smell the chlorine from the building pool mixed with his own sweat, a weirdly personal cocktail of effort and failure. He stepped out into the Miami night. The air was thick and warm, a blanket of humidity that immediately made his damp shirt feel clammy. Palm fronds rattled in a breeze that didn't cool, just moved the heat around. He scrolled through his phone waiting for his ride. Instagram showed him a video from the Inferno page. A slow-motion shot of someone screaming as they lifted a kettlebell, veins popping. The caption, nitrogen monoxide pain, no, gain, period. He scrolled past an ad for another gym. Shed your office body in 30 days, high intensity, high suffering, high results. A deep, quiet question bubbled up from a place of pure exhaustion. It wasn't a loud thought, it was a whisper. What if this is all wrong? What if the suffering wasn't the point? What if all that gasping for air, that feeling like your heart was going to punch through your ribs, that constant soreness? What if it wasn't a badge of honor, but a sign you were on the wrong path entirely? He thought about his knee. He thought about the brain fog that hit him every day at 3 p.m., where he'd mainline a cold brew just to think straight. He thought about how he used to love riding his bike along the beach path, just cruising, feeling the sun. When did he stop doing that? Oh, right, when a fitness influencer said it was junk mileage. His ride arrived. He slid into the cool leather seat. Long day? The driver asked friendly. The longest, Alex said, staring out at the blur of neon and headlights. He felt a strange disconnect. Here he was, in one of the most vibrant cities on Earth, surrounded by people sculpting perfect bodies on South Beach, with more gyms per square mile than almost anywhere. And he was more tired, more sore, and more frustrated with his body than he'd ever been in his life. He had followed the script. He had embraced the grind. He had paid for the pain. And for what? To feel worse? The car pulled up to his building. He thanked the driver and walked through the polished lobby, his sneakers squeaking on the marble. In the elevator mirror, he caught his full reflection, tired eyes, a posture that was slumped forward as if still braced for the next burpee. He wasn't out of shape, but he wasn't vibrant. Well, he got to his apartment, dropped his bag, and opened the fridge. The light was too bright. He grabbed a pre-made salad, the kind in a plastic clamshell. As he sat on his couch, eating something that tasted like nutrients and regret, the whisper came back, louder this time. It wasn't a question about his effort. He knew he was working hard. It was a question about the system. What if the secret wasn't in working harder, but in working smarter? What if the key to having more energy, a body that actually felt good, and yes, even losing that stubborn fat, was hidden in the exact opposite place everyone was telling him to look? What if the real magic wasn't in the storm, but in the calm? The idea felt dangerous. It felt like cheating. After all, he'd been taught his whole life that real results were earned through sweat and suffering. That if you weren't gasping, you weren't trying. That the burn was the only thing that counted. But what if that was the lie? What if the most powerful thing he could do for his health in 2025 was to finally, truly, learn how to slow down? Not on the couch, but in motion. To find a pace that felt almost too easy, a pace where he could have a conversation. A pace his body could sustain not for 45 minutes of hell, but for a lifetime. He finished his salad and looked at his watch. It was tracking his sleep score, his steps, his heart rate zones. It had 1,000,000 data points. But it had never once suggested, hey, maybe just go for a walk and breathe. It always pushed him to close his rings with more intensity. He put the container in the sink and looked out his window at the city. Somewhere out there, in those glowing gyms, people were right now pounding away, chasing the burn, believing the lie that suffering equals transformation. And for the first time, Alex had a crazy thought. What if he just stopped? What if he stepped off the hamster wheel? It was just a seed of a thought, a tiny crack in a very thick wall. But it was enough. Enough to make him set an alarm not for a morning HIIT class, but for sunrise. Enough to make him dig out an old pair of running shorts, not for a run, but for a walk. A real, honest-to-goodness, no gasps allowed walk. The storm had gotten him this far tired, sore, and stuck. Maybe, just maybe, it was time to see what he could build in the calm. The alarm went off at 5:45 a.m., and for a split second, Alex's entire body tensed up. It was a Thursday morning, the last week of February 2025. His muscles, remembering a different life, braced for the punishment to come. The mental checklist started automatically. Gym bag, pre-workout, the grim determination to crush another day. Then he remembered he wasn't going to crush anything. He was going for a walk. It felt absurd. He, Alex Castillo, a 32-year-old who had done Spartan races, who had deadlifted more than his own body weight, was lying in bed in his Brickell apartment, psyching himself up for a stroll. A part of him, a loud part, screamed that this was a waste of time, that real athlete's push, that you don't get change from comfort. That voice sounded a lot like his old Inferno trainer. It also sounded like the last 10 years of fitness culture he de-absorbed through his phone screen. He pulled on the old running shorts and a tech shirt. The pre-dawn light was a soft blue-gray, painting the quiet streets in a color you never see during Miami's blazing days. The air was cool, maybe 68 degrees, and it carried the faint, salty smell of the bay mixed with night-blooming jasmine from someone's balcony. It was quiet. The only sounds were the distant hum of a garbage truck and the soft scuff of his own sneakers on the pavement. He started walking toward the Miami beach path. His plan was simple, born from that whisper of an idea. Walk for 30 minutes, keep his heart rate low. The conversational pace, some article had called it. He tapped his watch to start a workout. It buzzed cheerfully. Go! It said in that aggressively positive digital font. And almost immediately the trap snapped shut. His legs, used to launching into a sprint, felt restless and silly at this speed. His mind raced faster than his body. Asterisk, this is nothing. You're barely moving. Your watch isn't even registering a workout zone. You're just a guy in athletic wear ambling. People are going to see you and think you've given up. Asterisk, this was the real villain. It wasn't laziness. Alex had proven he wasn't lazy. He'd shown up day after day to get his teeth kicked in by workouts. The villain was an identity. He bought into the grind set athlete persona, hook, line, and sinker. To him, being fit meant being able to endure suffering. It meant having stories about puking, about hitting new maxes, about leaving everything on the floor. Slowing down felt like a betrayal of that identity. It felt soft. It felt like he was admitting defeat. He thought of his friend Chloe. Well, she was more of a silhouette in his mind, a story told over sad drinks. Chloe was a litigation lawyer in downtown Miami. 2 years ago, she'd decided to run a marathon. Her approach was pure, unadulterated grind set. She'd run every single day at a pace that left her gasping. She posted sweaty, determined selfies with captions like, "The body achieves what the mind believes." And pain is just weakness leaving the body. She finished the marathon. She got the medal, and then her body fell apart. Shin splints turned into stress fractures. She gained 15 pounds during her recovery because her metabolism and hormones were a wreck. The last time he saw her, she told him she hadn't run a step in 18 months. "I think I broke my why," she'd said, swirling her wine. The fire was gone.
Have you ever told yourself, no pain, no gain? For years, that was my mantra. I was Alex, the grind set athlete. Every workout was a battle, every calorie was counted, and every ounce of sweat was a badge of honor. But recently, walking through a quiet South Beach, past the dark signs of smoothie shops and cryotherapy spots, something clicked. I saw a reflection of myself in a friend, Chloe, who didn't fail her marathon because she wasn't strong enough, but because she believed a story. The same story I told myself, the story that suffering equals strength. The no pain, no gain motto wasn't a motivator. It was a cage, and the fitness industry loves that cage. It's fantastic for business, isn't it? If you believe suffering is the only path to progress, you'll always need a louder coach, a harder class, a more brutal routine to prove you're still in the game. You're never satisfied. You just keep coming back for more punishment. It's a cycle of manufactured need. That morning as I walked, my watch buzzed. Heart rate, 112, a gentle, steady rhythm. The old me would have seen this as a total failure. This was the heart rate of someone binge-watching a new series, not someone working out. A jolt of anxiety hit me. I should jog, just a little. Get it up to 160 at least. Make it count. So I did. I sped up to a light jog, and almost instantly, everything changed. My breathing got shallow, and I started sucking air through my mouth. The peaceful sounds of the morning faded, replaced by my own ragged breath. I glanced at my watch. 145. 152. I tried to sing a song in my head, but the words just got jumbled, cut off by my desperate need for oxygen. I slowed back down to a walk. My breath evened out. The world came back into focus. The sunrise, with its streaks of orange and pink over the Atlantic, seemed sharper, more vibrant. It hit me then. The real villain wasn't just in the gyms or on the fitness apps. It was in my own head. It was the deeply ingrained belief that if it doesn't hurt, it simply doesn't work. I reached the wide, paved path that runs along the beach. A few other people were out. A group of serious runners that lasted past me, their faces masks of pure effort, their feet pounding the pavement in a rapid, slapping rhythm. For a second, I felt that old pull to join them, to match their intensity, to look the part. But then I saw someone else, an older man, maybe in his 70s, power walking with these smooth, long strides. He had a simple baseball cap on, listening to an audiobook, with a small smile on his face. He looked capable. durable, like he could go for hours, and I had to ask myself, who did I want to be? The sprinter, red-faced and gasping, who'd be totally burned out in 30 minutes, or the walker, steady and calm, who looked like he could go all day. It reminded me of something. A few weeks back, I had a telehealth appointment about my knee. The doctor, a young woman with kind eyes on my laptop screen, looked at the data from my watch. "Mr. Castillo," she said, "your resting heart rate is 72. That's okay, but for someone your age and activity level, it should be lower. Your heart rate variability is pretty low, too. This data tells me your nervous system is constantly in a bit of a fight or flight mode, even when you're just sitting." I was confused. "But I'm so active," I told her. She corrected me gently. "You're stressing your system. There's a difference. You're teaching your body to be in a state of emergency over and over. We need to teach it how to be in a state of rest and digest while you're moving. That's how you actually build resilience." At the time, I just nodded politely and completely forgot about it. But now, walking on that path, with the sky turning gold, it all clicked into place. Every HIIT class, every max effort sprint was a simulated emergency. No wonder I felt so tired all the time. My body thought it was fleeing from lions 5 times a week. I stopped for a moment, leaning on a railing that overlooked the sand. The first beachgoers were laying out their towels. The world was waking up. I looked at my watch. 28 minutes. My average heart rate was 118. I had broken a very, very light sweat, and I didn't feel wrecked. I felt clear. The mental static that usually filled my mornings, the dread of emails, the endless to-do list, it was just quiet. I just watched the waves roll in, a steady, endless rhythm. This whole identity I'd built for myself, the grind-set athlete, was starting to crack. Maybe I could be something else. A smart-fueled athlete. A long-game athlete. The label didn't really matter yet. What mattered was the feeling. For the first time in years, exercise didn't feel like a war against my own body. It felt like a partnership. It felt like I was giving my body something it needed, not punishing it for what it was. The walk home felt completely different. I noticed the fancy hotels, the beautiful Art Deco lines, the way the palm trees cast long shadows in the morning sun. I wasn't blinded by the effort of just trying to survive the next interval. I was actually present. And that's when the most surprising question popped into my head. It was quiet, just a curious thought. If this easy walking was the foundation, what kind of strength could I build on top of it? What if all that suffering had just been digging me into a deeper hole, while this calm, steady work was actually pouring a solid concrete slab for something new? I didn't have the answer. Not yet. But for the first time, I was genuinely excited to find out. The cage door was open. I had taken one small, slow step out of it, and the air outside that cage smelled like salt and jasmine, and it felt wonderfully like freedom. The first real test came a few weeks later, on a rainy Monday morning. I was standing at the floor-to-ceiling window of my apartment, watching fat drops of rain streak the glass, turning the view of Biscayne Bay into a watery, gray blur. My running shoes were on, laced up tight. My watch was charged, and my old identity, that grind-set athlete, was having a full-blown tantrum in my head. "See?" This voice hissed at me. "It's a sign. The universe is telling you this slow walk stuff is nonsense. You should be in a real gym, where it's dry, where the music is loud, where you can actually work. This is just playing." The voice was loud. The temptation to go back to my old ways, to the familiar pain, was incredibly strong. It promised a quick fix, a feeling of accomplishment, even if it was fleeting. But as I stood there, looking out at the rain, I remembered that feeling of freedom. I remembered the calm clarity of that walk. I took a deep breath. The voice in my head was just a story, a very persuasive one, but a story nonetheless. Today, I was going to try writing a new one. I grabbed a light rain jacket, put in my earbuds with a podcast, and headed out the door. The workout wasn't going to be about punishing myself. It was going to be about showing up, about consistency, and about listening to my body instead of screaming at it. It was a new chapter, and I was ready to see where it would lead. This journey is just beginning for me, and I want to share it with you. What are the fitness stories you've been telling yourself? Have you ever felt trapped by the no pain, no gain mindset? Let me know in the comments below. If this resonates with you, consider subscribing. We can figure this out together. Thanks for watching. He rode the elevator up to his apartment. The post-workout feeling was completely alien. He wasn't ravenous. He wasn't dizzy. He was ready. He made a smoothie, and for the first time, he didn't feel like he was rewarding himself for surviving a torture session. He was just fueling his body. He sat at his kitchen island, sipping it, looking out at the rainy city. His mind, usually a browser with 50 frantic tabs open, felt focused. He opened his laptop and tackled his most dreaded task, the Q1 budget report, and he finished it in one clean, uninterrupted flow. The entire day unfolded differently. There was no 3 p.m. crash. He didn't need the emergency cold brew. His knee, which usually sent a little warning twinge when he stood up after sitting for a long time, was silent. These were tiny, microscopic victories, invisible to anyone else, but to Alex, they were clues, evidence that he was on to something. That night, as he was getting ready for bed, he did something he hadn't done in years. He opened the Notes app on his phone. He titled it Zone 2 Experiment, March 3rd. And he wrote 3 lines. 1. Rainy walk, talk test works, felt ridiculous, then calm. 2. No afternoon crash, finished budget report. 3. Knee, quiet. He didn't write a novel. He didn't set a grand goal. He just recorded 3 small, true things. It took 20 seconds. It was the anchor he would need for the next time the old voice screamed that this was all a waste of time. As he lay in bed, listening to the last of the rain drip from the eaves, he realized something profound. The break wasn't just the first walk he took. The real break was the shift inside his own mind. It was the moment he chose to value the quiet data on his watch over the loud, punishing story in his head. It was the moment he defined a win not as leaving everything on the floor, but as showing up consistently, kindly, for his own body. He was no longer in the frantic, exhausted herd, running toward burnout. He had quietly stepped to the side. He was on a different path now, a slower one, damp with rain and lit by the soft glow of streetlights. He couldn't see where it led yet, but for the first time in a long, long time, he was curious to find out. And that curiosity, that tiny spark in the gray Monday rain, was more powerful than any screaming trainer had ever been. It was his own, and it was just beginning. The calendar flipped to April 15th, 2025. Tax day. For Alex, it wasn't the IRS deadline that marked the time. It was the data on his phone. He sat at his kitchen island on a Saturday morning, a cup of black coffee warming his hands, and he scrolled back through 6 weeks of entries in his Zone 2 experiment note. It was no longer just 3 lines. It was a story. A quiet, steady, revolutionary story. It hadn't been a straight line. It had been a daily war, fought not with gritted teeth on a gym floor, but in the gentle, persistent rhythm of showing up for a different kind of effort. The war had a new arsenal. He'd stopped trying to cram his life into hour-long workout blocks. Instead, he'd woven his new practice into the fabric of his days, like threading a new color into a familiar tapestry. Weapon number 1 was the bow. Walk station. He'd bought a small foldable walking pad for under his desk. Every morning during his first 2 deep-focus Zoom calls where his camera was off, he would walk, not fast, a slow, deliberate 2.5 miles per hour. At first it felt bizarre, typing an email while moving. But within 10 minutes, the magic happened. The gentle movement seemed to unlock his brain. The words came easier. The solutions to problems felt clearer. He'd finish a 45-minute call having walked 1.5 miles, his heart sitting calmly at 110 beats per minute, with a full page of actionable notes. He wasn't multitasking. He was synergy tasking. His body and mind were working together, fueled by a gentle flow of oxygenated blood, not adrenaline. Weapon number 2 was the Lustum. Lunch break reset. He'd abandoned the frantic Inferno class. Now at 1 p.m., he'd slip on his shoes and walk out of his office building. He had a 1.8-mile loop through the Brickell Financial District. The rule was ironclad. He had to be able to listen to the finance podcast he loved and actually comprehend the host's argument about market trends. If his mind started to wander because he was breathing too hard, he slowed down. He'd walk past the glass towers, under the shadow of the metro rail, past outdoor cafes where people were eating $25 salads. He'd feel the sun on his shoulders, the rhythm of his breath. He'd return to his desk 30 minutes later, not drenched and depleted, but refreshed. The afternoon slump became a relic of a past life. Weapon number 3 was the Yom. Weekend anchor. Every Sunday morning he'd take his old bike, the one that had been gathering dust on his balcony, and ride. Not for speed, but for exploration. He'd ride over the Venetian causeway, the turquoise water of the bay sparkling on either side, the wind a gentle push against his skin. He'd aim for 45 minutes to an hour, keeping his heart rate in that green zone. He'd discover little pocket parks in Edgewater, watch the boats in the marina, and stop at a juice stand he'd never noticed before. It didn't feel like training. It felt like reclaiming a piece of the city, and a piece of the joy he used to find in moving his body.
At Toe, he was creating one slow, deliberate step and one steady breath at a time. It was the second Tuesday in May, 2025, and Alex was running late. A last-minute client call had pushed his schedule back. He threw on his gear, the same shorts, the same shoes, and practically jogged to the entrance of the Miami beach path. His old trainer's voice, now just a distant echo, tried to whisper, "C, you're off schedule. You've lost your discipline, but as his feet hit the pavement, something automatic and beautiful happened. His body, without any conscious thought from him, settled into a rhythm, a smooth, easy, powerful rhythm. His breath was deep and steady, flowing in and out through his nose. His heart rate, which he checked after a few minutes, was locked in at 138. Perfect zone 2. His legs, which used to feel either sluggish or frantic, now felt like well-oiled pistons. He wasn't forcing the pace. He had found his pace. It was just there, waiting for him. This was the new normal. The changes weren't just numbers on a watch. They were woven into the fabric of his life. That stubborn Zoom belly his tailor had mentioned? Gone. He hadn't done a single crunch to make it happen. He'd just shown up, day after day, for his walks, his slow rides, his desk-time marches. His body had quietly let go of what it didn't need. His annual physical, which he just had, showed the rest. His blood pressure was down. His doctor had circled a number called fasting insulin and written excellent next to it. Whatever you're doing, she'd said, your cells are listening beautifully, but the biggest shock wasn't in his body. It was in his time. He suddenly had more of it. Or rather, he had more energy for it. The 3 p.m. fog had evaporated, giving him back an extra productive hour every day. He wasn't spending 90 minutes post-workout just recovering on the couch, watching the ceiling fan spin. That saved time rippled out. He'd finally started the online Spanish course he'd been putting off for years, listening to the lessons during his lunch walks. He'd read 4 actual paper books in the last month, just because he had the mental clarity to focus after dinner. His relationship with his partner felt different, too. He was present, not an exhausted ghost waiting for the weekend to recharge. The new normal had its own challenges, of course. They weren't about pain or injury. They were about patience and sophistication. Sometimes, on a perfect, breezy Miami evening, he'd feel a tug to just sprint, to let his legs fly and his heart roar. And sometimes he did. The difference now was that it was a choice, a celebration, not a punishment. He'd go for a fast, 10-minute run, feeling powerful and free, and then he'd come back home, his body humming, and know he could recover by tomorrow. He had built an aerobic base so solid that he could play on top of it without the whole structure collapsing. The other challenge was explaining it to people. At a work happy hour at a rooftop bar in Wynwood, a colleague slapped him on the back. "Dude, you look great. What's the secret? New trainer? Crazy diet?" Alex took a sip of his sparkling water. "I just walk a lot," he said with a shrug. The colleague laughed, thinking it was a joke, and turned away to talk about his new 6 a.m. CrossFit hellscape. Alex just smiled. The secret felt too simple, too quiet to shout over the music. He was okay with that. He realized the most profound shift one evening as he was prepping for the next day. He laid out his work clothes and then, almost as an afterthought, He placed his running shoes and socks right next to them. It wasn't a dramatic act. It was a simple statement. Movement was now a non-negotiable part of his day, like brushing his teeth. Not something he had to psych himself up for. Not a battle to be won. Just a thing he did because it made everything else better. This was the final, beautiful turn of the key. He wasn't exercising to change how he looked. He was moving to support how he lived. The body changes were just a happy side effect. So, if you're re-feeling that same tired frustration Alex felt back in February, if you're regrinding but going nowhere, if you're sore and tired and stuck, I want you to try something. Not a 30-day challenge, not a brutal new regimen. Just one thing. Tomorrow morning, or even today after this, I want you to go for a 20-minute walk. But here's the rule. You have to be able to talk out loud. Pick a song you know all the words to, or recite the Pledge of Allegiance, or call a friend and have a conversation. If you're gasping for air between words, you're going too fast. Slow down. It should feel almost too easy. It should feel a little silly. That's it. That is your first step into Zone 2. That is the secret Miami gyms Don T want you to know, because you don't need a membership, a special shoe, or a screaming coach to do it. You just need your own 2 feet and the willingness to try a different pace. Film your watch if you want. See the number. Feel the absurdity of an easy heart rate. That's your starting line. Not a line drawn in the pain of a gym floor, but a line drawn on the sidewalk of your own neighborhood, in the rhythm of your own breath. Alex finished his evening walk as the sun dipped below the downtown skyline, painting the glass towers in shades of fire and gold. He stopped on the pedestrian bridge, leaning on the railing. The water below was calm, reflecting the first bright stars. He took a deep, clean breath, filling his lungs all the way down to his belly. He felt the steady, strong beat of his heart in his chest, a calm, powerful drum, not a frantic hammer.